The day started like any other. The sun was just peeking over the rolling hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I was out in the fields, checking the irrigation lines for my prize-winning melon. The sweet scent of damp earth and growing things filled the air. That's when I heard the rustle. It wasn't a rabbit or a stray dog. It was heavy, deliberate. Before I could even turn my head, a rough burlap sack was thrown over me, plunging my world into suffocating darkness. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the thick fabric. Strong hands grabbed me, and the last thing I felt was the familiar soil of my farm being kicked away from under my feet. They dragged me, my boots scraping against gravel and dirt. I tried to fight, to thrash, but there were at least two of them. Maybe three. Their grips were like iron. Panic clawed at my throat, but I forced it down. My grandfather, who taught me everything about farming, also taught me to be resilient, to think clearly, even when the storm is raging. I focused on the sounds, the smells, the musty odor of the sack, the faint scent of stale tobacco, the rumble of an old truck engine starting up. I was thrown into the back, the cold metal floor jarring my bones. The engine roared to life, and we were moving. Where were they taking me? Why? My mind raced. Our farm, the Verdant Valley, had won the regional harvest fair for 3 years straight. Our produce was the talk of the county. Success breeds respect, but it also breeds envy. I thought of the Thompsons from the neighboring farm. Their fields always a little less green. Their harvests a little less bountiful. I remembered the sour looks from Old Man Thompson at the last fair when my tomatoes took the blue ribbon. Could it be them? The thought was chilling. We'd been neighbors for generations. The truck ride felt like an eternity. Every bump and turn was a jolt of fear. I tried to keep track of the direction, counting the seconds between turns, noting the change in the road's surface from rough gravel to smoother asphalt and back again. Finally, the truck shuddered to a halt. The engine cut out, and the silence was deafening. The back door creaked open, and blinding daylight assaulted my eyes as the sack was ripped from my head. I was in an old, dilapidated barn. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light coming from a grimy window. Standing before me were the Thompson brothers, Jed and Caleb. Their faces were grim, set in hard lines of resentment. Old Man Thompson was there too, leaning on a pitchfork, his eyes cold and hard. Well, look what we have here, he rasped, his voice dripping with scorn. The little princess of Verdant Valley. Your luck's run out, girl? My heart hammered against my ribs, but I refused to show them my fear. I stood up, brushing dust from my jeans. What do you want, Mr. Thompson? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Jed snickered. What do we want? We want what's rightfully ours, a fair chance you and your fancy farming tricks. It ain't natural. He gestured wildly. Pestilent corn. Melons that grow twice as big. It's not right. I stared at them, a mix of anger and disbelief washing over me. It's not tricks, I said firmly. It's science. Crop rotation. Soil analysis. Organic pest control. My grandfather researched this for years. It's all in his journals. Old Man Thompson spat on the dirt floor. Journals? We don't need no fancy book learning. We work the land the old way, the honest way. It was hopeless. Their envy had blinded them to reason. They weren't just jealous of my success, they were afraid of it. Afraid of a change they didn't understand. So what's your plan? I challenged, crossing my arms. Keep me locked up in this barn forever. What will that solve? Caleb, the younger and usually quieter brother, shifted uncomfortably. He said, we just need to make sure you miss the harvest deadline. Without you, your farm's a mess. The prize money will go to someone who deserves it. Someone like us. The county harvest registration deadline. It was in 2 days. If I didn't register our produce, we'd be disqualified from the competition, and more importantly, miss the contracts that came with it. It would cripple our farm financially. They weren't just trying to win a prize. They were trying to ruin me. A cold resolve settled over me. They underestimated me. I wasn't just a farmer. I was a survivor. They tied me to a wooden post in the center of the barn and left, locking the heavy door behind them. The sliver of light from the window began to fade as the afternoon wore on. I tested the ropes. They were thick, biting into my wrists, but they were old farm ropes. I knew their weaknesses. I began to work on the knots, twisting and pulling, using a small, sharp edge of a nail I felt protruding from the post to saw at the fibers. My hands grew raw, but I didn't stop. The thought of my fields, my legacy, fueled me. Hours passed. My fingers were numb, but I felt one of the strands give way, then another. With a final, desperate pull, my right hand was free. I quickly untied my other hand in my ankles. Freedom. But I was still locked in. I crept to the window. It was too high and too small to climb through. The main door was solid oak, with a heavy iron lock. No chance there. I scanned the barn, my eyes adjusting to the gloom. My gaze fell upon a pile of old farming equipment in a corner. Among the rusted plows and hoes, I saw it, a hand-cranked auger, a tool used for drilling holes. It was heavy, but I managed to drag it to the back wall of the barn, the one farthest from the farmhouse. The wood was old and rotting in places. I positioned the tip of the auger and began to turn the crank. It was grueling work. Sweat poured down my face, my muscles screaming in protest. The wood groaned and splintered. Every sound was magnified in the silence, and I prayed they wouldn't hear me. I worked relentlessly, driven by a primal need to get back to my land. After what felt like an age, the auger broke through to the other side. A breath of cool night air kissed my face. I worked on the hole, making it bigger and bigger until it was just wide enough for me to squeeze through. I wriggled out, scraping my back and tearing my shirt, but I was out. I was free. The moon was high in the sky, illuminating the path ahead. I didn't know exactly where I was, but I recognized the constellations my grandfather taught me. I found the North Star and oriented myself. My farm was west. I ran through fields and forests, my lungs burning, my legs aching. The night was filled with sounds, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen creatures, but the only sound I cared about was the thud of my own feet carrying me home. As dawn broke, I saw it, the familiar silhouette of my barn. Tetol sila, the rows of crops, stretching out like a welcoming embrace. I had made it. I stumbled through my front door, exhausted but triumphant. I didn't call the sheriff. Not yet. Vengeance could wait. My farm needed me. I had less than 24 hours. I worked like never before, fueled by adrenaline and a righteous fury. I harvested the best of my crops, loaded the truck, and filled out the registration forms with a shaking but determined hand. I drove to the county office just an hour before the deadline, my heart pounding with a different kind of rhythm, not of fear, but of victory. Later that day, the sheriff paid a visit to the Thompson farm. They found the ropes, the hole in the barn wall, and enough evidence to make the Thompsons confess everything. They faced justice, but their punishment was nothing compared to the failure of their plan. At the harvest fair a week later, Verdun Valley didn't just win. We swept every major category. As I accepted the Grand Champion trophy, I looked out at the crowd of fellow farmers. Most were smiling, applauding. I knew then that the Thompsons were the exception, not the rule. My success wasn't a threat, it was an inspiration. My name is Maria, and this is my land. No one will ever take it from me. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more tales from the valley.